And since that time, there has been a progression of these blindsided moments where, against all predictive modeling, the darkness, or this unified malevolence, their team of allies and the processes they deploy, have been experiencing successive losses, to the point where now it is on the brink of Hi, I'm Muzz, iEvolv. You could be anywhere, but here you are watching this video, so thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to continue with this format where we go directly into the channeling session, but before we do that today, there is one thing that I want to speak about. It's the How to Channel course, which I've been dragging on for so many months now. It's completely done, and I find myself in a little bit of a quandary because I have to leave Colombia. And this course has a live component, which means I have to be there to teach it live. So I can't just give you the course and then you do it in my absence. I need to be there. So I'm caught up with, do I try and launch it now, or do I wait until after I have relocated? So what I've decided to do is kind of a composite solution. I'm going to release it now and you'll get access, but we won't start the live component until after I have relocated. So it's going to be available for purchase for like the next 4 to 6 weeks. And so we'll just build up numbers, people basically enrolling into the class. And then once I've relocated, then we will begin the course proper with the weekly live sessions. So in this next week, I'm going to start sending out some emails to anybody who has bought the book or done a private channeling or inquired about a private channeling. Anyone who has submitted their email address to my system before will start receiving emails, and the very first few emails will basically say, if you would like to receive more information about the How to Channel course, click this link. And if you click that link, you'll receive more emails describing everything that's in there. If you're not interested, then just don't click that link and you won't receive any more emails, just so I don't bug you if you're not interested. So please keep an eye out for those. There'll be emails coming from me, Muzz, iEvolv. And on to today's channeling topic. The system is beginning to crack. Let's finish it off. Greetings and thank you for this rousing statement. The system is beginning to crack. Let's finish it off. We have decided to channel on this topic today because it is a really great encapsulation of what is occurring in your reality and how you, as the unified species, the humanity being, which stands against the encroachment of the darkness, this unified malevolence, which have formed a small alliance of evil to pit itself against the rest of humanity, and for the longest time, many millennia, has been experiencing one victory after the other as it slowly marches humanity into this vision of which they are anointed the kings and queens, the gods and goddesses of your reality, and the rest of you are subjugated into a slave class. You, as the unified species, is poised at the brink of triumph. From our perspective, you are much closer to the ultimate victory than it appears through the facade of your reality. So it all arises from the energy at the basal layer. And then we have the layer of the geometric and so on, which together forms this tangible reality you know as the 3D. And what is occurring in the 3D is a lag metaphor of what is occurring in the energetic. We can see that the light is very close to triumphing over the darkness within the context of your Earth human experience. Darkness and the stratagem they have employed is beginning for the first time ever in their experience to have major setbacks. And these major setbacks began in the 2016 election, when the outcome was something entirely different, the binary opposite of what had been strategized and coordinated to occur. And since that time, there has been a progression of these blindsided moments where, against all predictive modeling, the darkness, or this unified malevolence, their team of allies and the processes they deploy, have been experiencing successive losses, to the point where now it is on the brink of absolutely toppling over and then disintegrating into a state of rubble, ready for the forces of light, the allied humanity, to come in sorting through the rubble to see exactly what it was that was going on. Who were the perpetrators, the players, the organisers, the benefactors, and what was the intended final destination if this dismantling, this deconstruction did not occur. So, let us begin in this way. The final war of your species will not be the Third World War, but instead it is the war between the darkness and the light. And at the energetic layer, there is this continued bifurcation between the darkness and the light. So the individual units of your special being, the group being, the humanity being, have for the longest time been a composition of lightness and darkness. So each of you individually hadn't really chosen an alliance to the light or the dark, but instead were just existing in your own way, as subject to the breeze and the blowing of all of the different cultural influences. And so you all were carrying a great degree of darkness, but at the same time composed of a great degree of light, because you had love for those that were important to you, love for your animals, love for nature, and so on. But at the same time, you had fear, you had anxiety, you had depression, you had hatred for your enemy. What is occurring now is the human species are beginning to make a conscious choice about where they are going to align themselves to, particularly for those that are awakening to the light, are realizing that there is something going on which is nefarious. There is a force at work which wishes to drag humanity down to a place where there is no ethic, where there is no morality, other than what serves the individual, regardless of how perverse or how much it impacts the innocent. And feeling a repulsion for that philosophy, they are shunning, or rather purging, the darkness from themselves, and realizing that in this binary context, if they are not the darkness, if they reject the darkness, then there is only one other thing that they can be, and that is the light. And so now they are consciously, with effort, going into the light, polarizing to that end of the spiritual spectrum. Similarly, there are some who are deciding that it is a case of screw the world, if you will forgive our gesture. But this is the energy that they have. And so it is literally going into the darkness purposefully as an FU to the alternative, which is the light, and all those which they see as emblematic of the light, the righteous, the do-gooder, the holier than thou. This is how they perceive those going into that spiritual polarity. So, as a rejection and a hatred of those that have that philosophical awakening, they go further in the dark, even out of a sense of spite. And also, in this group, which are polarizing into the darkness, are those that have not made the philosophical choice, but have been so consumed by the cultural pillars, by the programming, by all of the intentional infestation of the darkness into their psyche, their belief system, their makeup, their definition of themselves, are gravitating into the darkness without actually consciously realizing this is so. They are just so enamored by the rationalizations of the darkness that they are willing to be the champions of darkness in the belief that they are instead being the champions of what is right, of what is good. The hopeful news for all of you is that there is a large disparity in the numbers between these two groups. And so those that are going into the darkness are a small number, and it is dwindling. And those that are going into light is a large number, and it is growing. And so there are those which we just spoke of who are going into the darkness because they literally believe that is where the goodness lay. That is the most virtuous path. But one by one, they are also having their awakenings. And eventually they reach the point where it has got so dark what the system is expecting them to do, what the system calls on them to stand for, to champion, to believe, that they are having the inkling that this doesn't seem right. If this is the righteous path, if this is the place of virtue, then why am I expected to be the champion of an idea which I find to be horrendous, which I find to be antithetical to nature, to humanity? And through this dawning process, they are leaving the darkness and going into the light. The reason that right now is so important is because you are on the brink of a major transition. And this transition is make or break for the cabal of darkness. If humanity does not make this transition as is intended by the engineering and the strategy, then the system will fail. And of course, this transition is into a technocratic state, a totalitarian societal structure which is based on your digital identity. Not just your digital identity as in your ID card, but the way that you fit into the system as a digital unit through all of your transactions, through all of your contributions to the internet, through all of the ways in which you utilize the World Wide Web and all the information which is available on it, and so on. So you will leave a footprint everywhere that you go, everything that you do. Nothing will be secret or your information only ever again. If this transition isn't successful, then the system collapses because it hinges on this level of totalitarian control. What wasn't expected was that when this period of transition was ready to be unfurled, that there would be alternatives to it. So, speaking with more specificity, the transition which is occurring right now is the transition from the old central banking fiat system of currency into what the system intends of the central bank digital currency. For the central bank digital currency to be an option which appears the most attractive and compelling to you, then the current system, which has been in place since 1913, the Federal Reserve Central Bank fiat currency system, it must collapse. And it must collapse in a way which is so devastating that each of you within the society that are relying on this financial system such that you can continue to live your lives, continue to pay your bills and put food on the table, collapses so comprehensively that you need to be saved from the crisis in which you find yourself. And the savior will be a centralized digital currency. And they will port you into this centralized digital currency system, and you will immediately have access to funds, and you will be able to use those funds to do all of your transactions. But it will be reliant on you having a digital ID. And this digital currency system will actually be a transactional system. So it's not so much about a place to store your wealth, but rather, from the perspective of those that will control it, it is a system to monitor and control all of the ways that you transact in your life. And even to the point where if you hold dissident thought, or if you make purchases which they deem against the rules of their system, then they will turn off your ability to transact and literally will cut you out of your ability to exist in society. The alternative which is in place is the existing crypto market, particularly Bitcoin. This stands as an alternative to the central bank digital currency. And now in the United States, at state levels, legislators are beginning to introduce bills which would outlaw all digital currencies, except, of course, the central bank digital currency. And these bills are not being introduced because they serve as a boon to the nations and the people of your planet. But instead, the politicians that are introducing these bills and co-signing these bills and so on are stooges, representatives, proxies of this centralized authority which wishes to rule everything. It is now wobbling on the crux, on the pivot point, where it can fall either way. The unified malevolence can stumble and literally lose it all, or they can just as easily fall in the other direction and find a stable footing again to finish this great work as they see it, which is the final vision of total dominion over everything. However, from our perspective, it is very unlikely, to the point of, shall we dare say, impossible, that this outcome which sees the triumph of the darkness is a likely outcome. Humanity has grown in its wakefulness to a point where it is now uncontrollable and it cannot be contained. The lid has been put on humanity's awakening as many times as been possible in the past. And the last attempt was during the pandemic, where your entire planet, to a large extent, was shut down and all of you were locked inside your houses. And from our perspective, this was really a remarkable thing to witness, because we understand that it is only a very small group that are coordinating this from the highest level, at the headquarters, you could say. And yet, through their influence, they have been able to control the behaviours of many billions of people. Not just controlling the behaviours, but getting them to do something which they would rather not do. So that strategy was employed at the time for a few reasons. And one of these major reasons was to stifle the exponential growth in the awakening of humanity. Prior to 2019, there were protests of many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions. But what was thematic is it was the people coming together to form a significant force to protest about how they were being treated, how they were being expected to live, the sacrifices they were forced to make by the elite group that rule over them. Those that are at the very pinnacle of the cabal of darkness recognize what a great threat this represented. So they unfurled this strategy they had been waiting to use when the time was right. And it was very successful in dividing you from each other, to the point where you were afraid even of your own children, your own parents, your own partner, for fear that they carried a contagion which could make you very ill and possibly end your life. Even to the point of being afraid of the air, being afraid of the bench top with the naked touch, and so on. The percolating of the human awakening is a phenomenon which is much larger than just the humanity being. It is demonstrative of a much larger energetic shift which is taking place in this region of the cosmos. So your entire celestial system is moving through a part of the galaxy which is of a very high vibratory energetic quality. And so it is just very a natural consequence of being in this ambient energetic area that there is going to be a oscillation, a resonance forming in all entities that pass through this region, including your sun, the other planets, your earth, nature, and each of you individually. So in comparison, the cabal of darkness is very, very insignificant in its capacity to put up a counter energy which is sufficient to stop what is occurring. And their effectiveness relies very much on the greater bulk of humanity not realizing how powerful it actually is. And so is basing its decisions on the rationale rather than on the intuitive sense, on the energetics. Because when each of you take the moment to peer into oneself and ground into the earth, into the sun, into the galaxy, and of course into the one, then it becomes very apparent that you, who is watching this, is a very powerful entity. And when you multiply this by many billions to form the special being, the humanity being, your combined might is extraordinary. And even more than that, you are reflective, when in this unified state, of the natural momentum of the evolution of the all. You are in the direction of flow of chi of the One when you are in this state. So, what chance does the cabal of darkness have when they are very insignificant in their power, when they are very small in their numbers, and when they are totally counterproductive and antithetical to the very natural momentum of the all? What is occurring now is humanity, from this experience of the pandemic and all that was thrust on them through the regulation, through the mandates, through the restrictions, through the loss of income, through the loss of freedoms, and now also through the loss of life, are realizing that it is not necessary to follow the rules. One does not have to be a believer of the system to be a good person. In fact, the contrary is more truthful. It is when you don't follow the system or believe the lies that you are at a greater capacity for virtue, for integrity, for thinking clearly and stepping into your power. The expansion of the light and the momentum that it is gathering now has become so torrential, so much a tsunami in your reality, that the momentum is in your direction by default more than it is not in your direction. Meaning that in the past, the cabal of darkness and its deep state minions and so on, those that are literally controlling the cultural pills and pulling the strings, they were able to pull a ruse, a false flag, or a total fabricated construct to get your societies to believe and then act in a certain way. And they could pull these off with what seemed to be absolute ease. And if they were ever discovered, it would be many decades later, where the damage had been done and the reward or the benefits that they wished to receive through this deception had already been gathered. Come to the current day, and this is no longer the case. Instead, what is occurring is when they follow the same playbook and unfurl these strategies, the benefit they receive is very short-lived, because humanity now is so cynical and skeptical of everything that the mainstream says that the immediate response is, it's a lie. And therefore, I have been prompted once again by the mainstream system for the next thing I must discover the truth of. And then the truth is found inevitably. It is broadcast into the populace, and those that were on the verge of awakening now fully awaken, and those that are starting to question are now closer to rejecting the system and fully accepting that they have been deceived by the system. So it is just a boomerang effect. Everything that the deep state do now, and those that are proxies of the deep state, the cabal of darkness, so on, it does little more than to accelerate and expand the awakening of your species. Let's finish by looking at the second half of this statement which we were inspired to channel on today. Let's finish them off. Right now is a moment of opportunity. It is a reason to be excited. The great flux is upon you, and it is an opportunity to totally shift the direction in which you personally and humanity is heading. The transition of the cabal of darkness into their new system, their new platform of control. is just starting to wind up. And this is why you're seeing the failures of banks, because the old system must collapse. Instead of finding yourself moving into the central bank digital currency system, look for an alternative way out. There is still time, because this collapse is only just now beginning at a level which affects each of you individually as consumers. Because it has been occurring in the background at the level of banking for some time. You can still come out of this as somebody who is not reliant on the new system. And the way that this is done is to transfer your wealth into some vehicle which isn't reliant on the mainstream system. And so those would typically be through precious metals, or through very safe and sound cryptocurrencies. And of course, this will be reliant on your own research. The point of making these suggestions is this is the fork in the road right now. And what you choose and what the rest of humanity chooses is going to have a very big outcome on what humanity will look like and the human experience into the future. Ultimately, humanity finds its way to the light, but there are a number of different pathways it can take before it gets there. And right now is the first junction point where humanity can get off the ride of darkness and start its ascent into the light and an entirely different experience for what it means to be a human being right now. Or if it is fooled into adopting this transactional system, then there will be many more years of this dystopian ride, watching it get worse and worse and worse until humanity is pushed to the absolute brink and then breaks free. But it will come at great cost, at great consequence, with great casualty. You, the individual, can prepare yourself financially such that you do not participate in the new system, but also you can contribute energetically by entertaining only the concepts and the energies of the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum and broadcasting them into your environment, rather than just being the passive observer that continues to collect this information, but keeping it for oneself, because there is a fear of the consequences of sharing it and letting it known to the others within your environment that this is the way that you think, this is the way that you feel. The time for that self-protection is past. Something much larger than just yourself is now at stake. And if you wish to give it a personal feel, then consider, what will the lives of your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren be if you and all those like you make the choice in this current time to do nothing, to keep it to themselves, such that they avoid the awkwardness and possible rejection of your immediate environment. Be courageous. Be brave enough to start sharing to the world this new vision of what is actually occurring and what the consequences will be if it isn't stopped. Through your contribution and those like you, the chance that this is the moment that humanity breaks free becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And of course, there is a ripple effect. So it is not just you, but it's all those that are influenced by you. And then those that you influence will then influence others, who will influence others, who will influence others. We ask from you, as a service to yourself, as a service to the expanded identity of which you are a part, the humanity being, and as a service to the One, that you utilize this opportunity and become a herald in some capacity of the truth, even if it has some consequence to your immediate lifestyle and relationships. It is time to put that all aside, such that you and the rest of your species can move into a very different paradigm. What occurs in these next couple of years will be the pivot point. And it is really starting to get interesting at this very moment. We come to you week after week as an advisor, as a guide, as a provider of alternative ideas. But this week, unlike other weeks, we are very specifically asking you to participate, to take action, to be a contributor to the change. Because this is what is required at this time by your species. And it must begin somewhere. So we ask that in your personal sphere, you be the origin of this new way of perceiving reality. And consequences be damned. Do it because it is what is best for your species, for your planet, for your creator. Thank you, and we love you. Thank you for making it to the end of another channeling session. And today I'm going to speak my dog Bengo. Bengo is an unusual name for a dog, but it was chosen by my son when my son was 8. My son's 20 now. So we've had Bengo for 12 years, but on the 1st of April he turns 15. I got him when he was 3. I was his 4th owner, so he was a kind of an unwanted dog, and he was a bit traumatised, very under-socialised, terrified of everything and everyone. Yet in that time that I've owned him, he's really transformed, so I'm really proud of how he has grown so much in the time that I've owned him. I leashed him for the first 2 weeks, and then I've never leashed him again, so we've been everywhere and done everything entirely on command. So when we cross the street, stop, start, everything, it's all by command, and he is very obedient and he loves to do the right thing. Although he's getting a bit deaf now, so sometimes he doesn't get my command, and also he's going a bit blind as well. So I've got to be really close for him to be able to see that it's actually me. We go to the beach every single day, and the beach is his favourite place in the world. It's also my favourite place in the world. And we've been doing this now for 12 years. So I calculated just recently that we've been to the beach together approximately 6,000 to 7,000 times. And I swim, and while I'm swimming, he just sits on the shore, takes a rest, looks around, has a sniff, might go and say hello to some other dogs if he sees them, for like 15 to 20 minutes. And where we are here, for example, the beach can have like 5,000 people on the beach, very crowded beach at times. And I'll go and I'll swim for 15, 20 minutes, and he'll stay on the beach by himself, just waiting for me to come back. So he's very competent now compared to who he used to be, and that's why I'm really proud of him. In the time that I've owned him, I really made an effort to walk him at least 3 to 4 times every single day. And also, he's never eaten commercial dog food. He's only ever eaten food which I've home prepared. Even when I travelled overseas, I would home prepare the food before I left. And the recipe I use is specific to dogs. So now that he's about to turn 15, it's really starting to... People usually think that he's like 7 to 8 because he's in such great condition, and he still runs, and he's still very happy and cheerful. Although he's in nap mode now. Got back from the beach, he's just had a run and a swim. So now he's in sleep mode. You may have noticed that he has a mohawk. And the reason I cut his hair like that, it's for function. People assume that I do it to be cool, but it's actually for function. Because we go to the beach so much, that's a lot of sun exposure for a dog. So with that hair on his back, it keeps his back from being sun exposed like all the time. But if I have that hair all over him, he's too hot. So it's kind of a compromise between having no hair and having hair. And this is the most functional design. I've been doing this, I think, like maybe for 8 to 10 years or something. But it looks cool. People love this design. Every time I do anything, you see me in any video or anything, he's always right there. In the book that you read of mine, if you did read it, he was there for every single page that I typed, always no further really this far. Whether it's the shower, the bathroom, the kitchen, the lounge room, he's always right there. And he has a bed of some kind in virtually, or in actually every single room of this house. There is something like this. So no matter where I am, he's got a little place you can cozy up while I'm in the room until we'll even go to the next room. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the little story about my dog Bengo, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.